Get ready to embrace debate. First Take starts now.
Coming up on the First Take podcast, did CP3's legacy take a hit after the Thunder ended the Clippers' playoff run? Plus, Donald Sterling might sue the NBA, but what impact would this have on the league? And will Johnny Manziel's marriage with the Browns have a happy ending? All that and more coming up on the First Take podcast, which starts right now. It's Friday, folks, in case you forgot. Good morning, everyone. I'm Carrie Champion in studio with Skip Bayless. In Los Angeles is our partner, Stephen A. Smith. How are you this morning?
What's going on, y'all? How you doing?
Stephen A. Smith, we are now down to the final four. Heat, Pacers, Thunder, and...
here we go.
Wait, I'm sorry, I forgot that other team.
Spurs.
Oh, the Spurs, they made the Final Four? You're
Yes,
kidding
they
me.
did. Yes.
You might want to chill out since you're always crying about how the Spurs have to go against OKC. You might want to pump your brakes just a little bit.
As you always say, if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. So we, as in my Spurs, are about to do just that. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right.
Challenge issued. On the schedule today, Johnny Manziel sent a text to the Browns quarterback coach during the draft. The text message and what it means coming up in just a few moments. Plus, Michael Sam has a docu-series about his life. Perhaps a surprise to you, to me, to you, and the Rams. The gentleman will weigh in. But first, we just talked about it. Thunder beat the Clippers to end the series and advance to the conference finals to meet the Spurs. Your Spurs.
Really? Official.
It's official. Early in the game, the Thunder were down by 16 and struggled to score, but Kevin Durant took over and led the Thunder to a 104-98 win. Durant, with 39 points and 16 rebounds, said he focused on one shot at a time.
Well, experience just helped us out a lot. Just being with each other for so long definitely helps. We got a long ways to go. We always can get better. But this is definitely a series that pushed us to the brink, and we was in some tough spots, and we stayed together and we persevered, and that shows character.
Stephen A., you were at the game last night. You can give us an insider perspective. The biggest reason you believe the Clippers lost the game?
Well, I believe the biggest reason the Clippers lost the game is because Kevin Durant got hot, started out 1 of 8, and then ultimately hit 11 of his next 17 shots, including 5 3-pointers. He was absolutely sensational. He was pulling up from 30, Skip, like I told you he could, and ultimately finished with 39 points. I think the other reason, to be quite honest with you, is that even though Chris Paul and Blake Griffin didn't play bad, if you're going to go up against Kevin Durant, a superstar in this league, you need to respond by being one of your own. And I don't think that was the case with either of them last night. I think they played good basketball, but you needed a Herculean performance from one of them. You didn't get it. And then last but not least, I look at DeAndre Jordan. This is a guy I believe has the potential to be the best big man in the game if he could hit free throws, because I think he's that formidable defensively, particularly when it comes to rebounding and blocking shots. But if he can't be out there for you in key pivotal moments, or he has to restrict himself simply because, again, you can't use him as a viable option simply because he can't hit free throws or whatever the case may be, then that inhibits your ability to do some of the things that you may want to do. And I think the combination of all of that sporadically throughout this series is why the Oklahoma City Thunder ultimately ended up winning it.
I'm going to agree with you and then some on this question. I'm not going to take this question as a blame question. I'm going to go credit, because I'm going to stick by what I said before this series started, Stephen A. The Thunder are just better than the Clippers, because Westbrook and Durant are just a little better than CP3 and Blake Griffin are. And trust me, the Thunder know it deep down in the bottom of their hearts, and the Clippers know it too. And that's what I saw last night. I'm going to remind you that with 8 minutes left in this game, it was 80-80. It was a tie basketball game, closeout game at Clippers. And what happened? Durant and Westbrook went on a 10-0 run that was actually capped off by a Reggie Jackson three-pointer. 10-0 run, and that game and basically that series pretty much over at that point, because Westbrook and Durant were not going to miss their free throws down the stretch. Westbrook hit all 6 of his, 6 for 6 in the fourth quarter. Durant went 4 for 4 in the fourth quarter. Westbrook had 10 points in the fourth quarter. Durant had 11, and I got to throw this in, Stephen A. He had 8 rebounds in the fourth quarter without Serge Ibaka, who was injured for much of the third and the fourth quarter. So here on a silver platter for the home team, the Clippers, was a potential Game 7 back in Oklahoma City. Here you go. Serge is out with a calf injury. We're going to talk about the depth of that injury a little bit later in the show. But even then, the Clippers couldn't pull it out. And to me, as I look at the body language of the Clippers, I thought they were pretty flat and lifeless considering this was a do-or-die game at home. I thought their body language was basically saying, gee, we hope we pull off some miraculous finish late. But the Thunder body language, even though, as you point out, Durant and Westbrook got off to horrendous starts, their body language was constantly, we got this. They just knew they were better, and they proved it, and it wasn't that close. And I was very disappointed in the Clippers' overall effort and demeanor.
Well, I wasn't disappointed in it. You know, they came out strong, Skip, in the first quarter, but then ultimately Durant then poured it on. They shot 71% from the field in the third quarter, in large part due to Durant and what he was putting on display. And again, you know, when you are a guy the magnitude of a Kevin Durant, that could demoralize and deflate a lot of people because you're more preoccupied with trying to figure out a way how to stop him than anything else. I had a conversation with Doc Rivers after the game, and he just shook his head. He said, Steven, he said, we couldn't match up with him. We just couldn't match up with him. And when you got a guy of his magnitude that gets on that role, it can really demoralize and deflate you because you've run into a buzzsaw and you look and you just seem helpless. There's nothing that you can do. And when you look at the offensive repertoire, Skip, that Kevin Durant brings to the table, it would be one thing if you're LeBron James and just muscle and brute force and a locomotive come at you. It would be another if you're Michael Jordan and you have an aerial assault that's unrivaled for ages because we haven't seen anybody fly through the air like you are, like you can. But you can throw a body on those people. You can get physical with those people. You can look for calls. You can go through a lot of things. What do you do when you're trying to trap a guy 30 feet away from the basket to get his ball out, get the ball out of his hands, Skip Bayless, and he just pulls up from 30? Before the double team even arrives, he just says, you know something? I'm right out here near midcourt. I'm just going to pull up. What can you do? And that's really what the kind of predicament that Doc Rivers and the Los Angeles Clippers found themselves in. Clearly, you know, the whole crowd, you had people near the end of the game throwing water, cups of water and stuff like that at the referees because they were so disgusted because some of the calls were absolutely positively awful. There's no question about that. But in the end, the Los Angeles Clippers were forced to succumb to a dude named Kevin Durant that showed why he's the league MVP.
You know, the call that I think drew the water bottles flung on the court was the one on Chris Paul. It came after Westbrook also got called, bless you, 50-50, charging call.
Yep.
And we're going to talk about Chris Paul here in just a moment. But I thought it was almost a negative reputation call on Chris Paul. And it was, I didn't like the call. Now, the game had already been decided to me. But Chris Paul has a reputation among referees for playing a little gray area basketball, sometimes a little cheap. And I think they thought that he went with an elbow actually to block Collison's approach to him. And they thought that he knocked Collison off his feet. And Collison took a pretty hard fall. So, again, did that call decide the game? It was a 7-point game already at that point, 3:30 left. I'm sorry. I'm not going to give you that one.
Right.
Well, the reason why I would say, but you can't deny the possibilities, is because of what transpired in Games 4 in favor of the Clippers and in Game 5 in favor of Oklahoma City. So when you see stuff like that transpiring in a series like this, anything's possible, Skip. You can't rule out anything.
Well, I guess bottom line, Stephen A., I guess the conspiracy theorists could argue that the refs did not want Donald Sterling's team to advance to the conference or the NBA Finals. I don't think that's what was going on. I think Durant and Westbrook were going on last night.
All right.
Gentlemen, let's go to the other side of the ball, shall we? Chris Paul had 25 points and 11 assists after the game. He talked about the loss.
It's crazy. You play all season long, and just the last few games, we really started to figure out who our team was and how to play. And it's crazy that it's over because, man, we really do have a great team, you know, collective group of players, not just me and Blake or me, Blake, and DJ. and it's just tough to realize that it's over again.
Chris Paul saying they have a great team, Stephen A. But let's focus on him. How much did this loss hurt his legacy?
I don't think it hurt it that much. And the reason why I feel that way, regardless of my back and forth with Skip Bayless, is because, again, if I'm looking for somebody to be a floor general for my team, Chris Paul is one of the top 2 names I'm going to mention. I just think that it's one of those things, Skip Bayless, the best way for me to answer the question is the same way you answered the first question. You're not going to play blame game here. You're going to point to credit. Russell Westbrook may very well be one of the top 5 players in the game of basketball. Russell Westbrook is clearly one of the top 5 athletes in the game of basketball and unquestionably one of the top 2 most athletic point guards, even though I know you don't consider him a point guards, in NBA history. This dude is just on another level. And when you are forced to go up against him and you don't have the athleticism to match, you know, I look at Chris Paul. Was it a superstar performance? Absolutely not. No question about it. But at the same time, it's not like he sold out. It's not like he choked or anything like that. You're just going up against a guy who is clearly a superior athlete and a superior offensive player. And when you have that coming at you, you're preoccupied in a lot of ways because you got to try to defend that. You got to figure out a way to do what you can with that. And Chris Paul was, struggling. I mean, Westbrook came in the last night's game averaging 29, 6, and 6 in this series. I mean, this dude, again, is just on another level. And we have to sit there and take a step back and understand what we're talking about. Skip, is interesting because I left the game last night after talking to a bunch of fellas and after watching the game, and I found myself fantasizing about what it would be like to watch a Derrick Rose at 100% against a Russell Westbrook. Because that's just an encounter for the ages as far as I'm concerned, because that's how surreal both of them are. I look at Chris Paul as an elite point guard that knows how to be a floor general, but ran into a buzzsaw named Russell Westbrook. And when that happens, I don't know how much you're able to do with it. I've seen it many times. Some great, great players get humbled by guys like LeBron, Kobe, Michael Jordan. You just run into a buzzsaw, no matter how great you are, you don't measure up.
Okay, but can we be honest here?
I'm always honest. Go ahead.
Chris Paul is not a top 5 player in the NBA. And I just want to put this in some perspective. I don't want to appear to be kicking the man when he's down after they lost in 6 games. But Stephen A., can we at least accept the fact that Chris Paul is a very good player, but he's not a great player. He's not a superstar, at least in my definition.
I consider him a great point guard, but he's not a top 5 player, but he is a top 3 point guard.
I don't know what that matters to the final outcome in these playoff games, because all I know, I'm going to say it one more time, this is going to be the last time, not beating a dead horse, and then we're going to go on to Spurs and Thunder, okay?
Okay.
But remember, now 9 full years in to Chris Paul's NBA career, he has never been out of the second round of the playoffs, and he has now only been to the second round 3 times. And his postseason NBA playoff record is only now 22-31, 22 wins and 31 losses. And trust me on this, and you're going to have to accept this, because going into this offseason, his Game 5 meltdown, 3 incomprehensible blunders in the final 13 seconds at Oklahoma City, costing his team that game. He took full blame. He deserved full blame. But it cost them a chance to have a closeout game on their side last night. They could have won this series at home last night if he had not committed even one of those 3 blunders. So that is going to taint his resume going forward unless Chris Paul can win a championship. That would erase most of that, I would think. That would make it forgettable. Oh, yeah, I remember once upon a time. But if he doesn't win a championship, that's going to stick on his resume and taint it. And I'm going to throw a quick theory at you. The Chris Paul that I have seen since coming to the Clippers is not quite the same player I saw in New Orleans early on. That guy played with a real edge game after game. That guy played with a refuse-to-lose fury, almost a la Russell Westbrook. And I just wonder, since becoming the president of the Players Association, since becoming a father, since becoming an advertising superstar with his Chris Paul, Cliff Paul commercials, I'm just wondering if that took a little bit of edge off Chris Paul. He's got so much responsibility now that he can't channel quite as much rage kind of energy into winning playoff games. That's just me from a distance. I don't see the same guy who gets contagious with his teammates, where he's just playing with such will that he lifts the rest of the team. Last night, the rest of the team was not responding to Chris. And he wound up with good numbers, Stephen A., but I point out to you, only after Oklahoma City went up 10 did Chris Paul start scoring, and he scored 12 in the last 6 minutes when I thought the game was pretty much over. So that brought him up to 25 for the game with 11 assists. Looks like a pretty good night's work for a very good player. But did they count? Do those points count? Nope.
Well, that's excellent analysis on your part. I definitely agree with what you're saying in terms of what you're seeing from him. But I don't think it's a dissipation in edge. I think what has happened is that Chris Paul has more responsibilities, because when he was in New Orleans, you had the David West to work with, and that was pretty much it. Tyson Chandler was in the middle and defending and blocking shots, but really it was about you and David West. Now it's you. It's Blake Griffin. You try to throw alley-oops because of the Lob City to DeAndre Jordan. You've got Jamal Crawford. You've got Matt Barnes. You've got Doc Rivers coaching you and trying to elevate your game to another level, so you're receiving instructions. Remember, this is his first year playing for Doc Rivers, and so there's a different responsibility. Not to knock Vinny Del Negro in any way, because Vinny Del Negro did a good job with them last year and leading them to 56 wins, and people don't need to gloss over that. He deserves credit where credit is due. But when you talk about Doc Rivers, you're obviously talking about somebody that's considered to be on a different level. But you also have to take into account the fact that you have those additional responsibilities. Yes, you do have the image issue, and it's something that we'll talk about in the days, weeks, and months to come, Skip. It's not so much that it's the commercials. It's not so much that it's the heightened level of celebrity. I think what has happened with a lot of these athletes, and I think it's a story that ultimately is going to be told, whether it's through their agents or agencies that represent them, this quote-unquote branding thing, you have so many people in their face and in their ear concerned so much about image that I do think it messes with a lot of people.
It does.
And I think it's something, and I dare say it messes with their game a lot of times. Because I think guys find themselves on the court thinking about more than just the competition. They're thinking about their names, they're thinking about their legacies, they're thinking about their reputations, and I think it's a problem. But in the case of Chris Paul, I don't think that it's that much of an issue. I think you ran into Russell Westbrook.
Okay, I know. That's fair. I'm looking at more of the bigger picture here, but you're on to something, because I've always seen a split personality in Chris Paul. If you talk to him, as I have, off the floor, he can be the nicest guy or come across as the nicest guy in the world. And I know that's a genuine part of his nature. There's also a cold-blooded killer in there somewhere.
That's right.
And I think he left some of that behind. This is my armchair psychiatry, if you will. But I think he left a little of that behind because he had to become more responsible as the president of the Players Association. And that guy in the commercial that everybody loves so much. I love those commercials. I keep telling you, I don't get tired of watching them. Every time they come on, I'm there. Sometimes I want to mute when they just get relentless, but not these. So he comes across as so likable in the commercials that I think Chris is now starting in public to say, I got to be that guy. I got to be that commercial guy. And I do think it took a little bit off his game, just a little bit.
Well, again, you may be right. I'm not sure you are. But in the end, I will tell you this. They do have a good team. If DeAndre Jordan works on his free throw shooting, even though he played 36 minutes last night, if he works on his free throw shooting in his post game a little bit more, I think this guy could be the best big man in the game. And if that happens, I think that changes a lot of things for the Los Angeles Clippers. But they went through a lot, and
they did.
Again, after all that they went through, ultimately they were valiant in losing. But Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant's a lot to overcome when things are not ideal.
Doc, in the last couple of hours, it's come out through Mr. Sterling's attorney that he does not intend to pay the $2.5 million fine imposed on him.
I'm not paying my $25,000 either. I think I'm prepared for a somewhat of a messy summer, mentally at least. We don't have to do a lot. That's the good news. Our roster is pretty good, so that's like a saving grace for us this summer. Thank gosh we don't have, 6 free agents, 7 free agents. We don't have that, so I think that helps. But we'll see how it goes, and I'll see how it goes.
Donald Sterling not paying his fine, that according to his antitrust attorney. Doc had it right. A messy summer and perhaps even longer could describe the battle that Donald Sterling intends to engage in as the league tries to make him sell his team. His attorney, Maxwell Bleacher, wrote a letter to the NBA executive vice president, and according to SI.com, that letter claims that Sterling has not violated any article of the NBA Constitution. Therefore, he will not pay the fine. Stephen A. Smith, your take.
Well, it's sad, but predictable. And it just shows the level of selfishness that Mr. Sterling has had. And when they talk about the NBA Constitution, I'm quite sure there is something in the language of the NBA Constitution that alludes to a potential oyster or ouster for anybody who impugns the integrity of the league. And I think it's safe to say that Donald Sterling has done that. When you have a league that's 80% black and you listen to those audio tapes, you all must remember that I was out here for their next game in Los Angeles. They played Golden State that Sunday for Game 4, which they lost. They mailed it in that game. They came back home to play Game 5. I was here. The advertisers and the sponsors had all pulled their sponsorships. You walked inside the Staples Center and there was nothing but Clipper stuff. Any of the ad sales and, the signs and all of that stuff, it was covered in black. Nobody wanted to have anything to do with Donald Sterling's Clippers. And it's only been since Commissioner Adam Silver invoked a lifetime ban and assured us that a vote would be taken by the owners and that he was confident that more than 3/4 of them would vote to oust Donald Sterling, that things calmed down. Donald Sterling is not wanted. His wife is not wanted. Nobody with the name Sterling associated with the Sterling family is wanted. It is that simple. And so as a result of it, well, we have to ask ourselves, he could sit here and fight until the cows come home. Last time I checked, the National Basketball Association is a private industry. It has every right to say, we don't want you. Now, it doesn't have a right to keep your money. It doesn't have a right to confiscate your profits. It doesn't have a right to do those things. But it does have a right to say, we don't want you associated with our brand. And so now all this comes down to is what I've been reiterating for days. The process, and we understand there is a process that it involves. But what the players care about most, the players that I have spoken to, and I've spoken to several, is simple. They got what they wanted from Adam Silver, the lifetime ban. Now they want a unanimous vote on the part of the owners to vote him out as owner of the Los Angeles Clippers. Once the owners do their part, whatever litigation takes place because the players understand that there's but so much you can do to circumvent that process. That can't be circumvented in all actuality. And Donald Sterling was never involved with these guys on a day-to-day basis anyway. None of them ever liked him. None of them ever wanted to be around him, okay? So he's not going to be missed, and he was never involved with the day-to-day stuff anyway. But what cannot happen is you have owners, and some of them vote for him to stay on. Because if that happens, It's going to be a problem for the league, and that's what the players are waiting to see. They're waiting to see the position these other owners take in joining Adam Silver. Who's going to go against Adam Silver's recommendation? That's all we need to watch out for. The rest is just legal mumbo-jumbo that was very, very predictable, to be quite honest with you.
Question. How long does it take for the cows to come home?
I thought, Skip, the cows should have come home by now, but
Okay.
I guess it should take about an additional 10 days. It shouldn't be more than that to me.
I don't know how long it's going to take for the cows to come home, but he's going to fight until they come home. It may take 2 or 3 years for the cows to come home.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the owner vote. I'm sorry.
No, well, that too. That too. I'm going to stand by what I said the first day. This will be no slam dunk to oust this man as the owner of the Clippers and this man's wife as the co-owner of the Clippers. I think it's going to get messy, and it's going to take a long time. And I'm going to remind you, Kerry just referred to this antitrust attorney. Remember when he last represented Donald Sterling? Or maybe it was the first time. Remember when Sterling defied all the other owners and moved his Clippers from San Diego to Los Angeles? And the other owner said, we sue you for fine you for $25 million. We fine you. He sued back for $100 million, and they ended up settling for a $6 million fine. You don't think that's about to ensue right now? And again, I keep hearing, and I hope you're right about the NBA Constitution and bylaws say blah, blah, blah. But the U.S. Constitution says blah, blah, blah. It says some higher things here. And Mark Cuban was the first one to say, hey, be careful here. That first day he said, slippery slope we're on here, Constitution, because now you're going off. And again, I'm not defending Donald Sterling. I want him out as badly as you do and the players do. But I know what happens with the law of this land and the courts in this land. And you got to remember that Stephen A., all of a sudden you've got an issue here where you're trying to oust this man off a taped conversation that was illegally recorded in the state of California. No matter how you slice what he said, we know what he said, and we know why we want him out. But it was illegally recorded. Will it stand up in court with an antitrust attorney who's going to argue, hey, you're forcing my man to sell at a reduced rate here? That's what's going to happen. That's where we are. So the players better get ready for this.
Yeah, but I don't recall anybody forcing him to sell at a reduced rate, number one.
Well, you don't know that.
Number two, and more importantly, Skip Bayless, I think we need to take a couple of things into consideration, and I think this is the perfect format to do it. The NBA Constitution needs to stand for something. Dare I say, on the level of the U.S. Constitution. You know why, Skip? Because that applies to the players. You know, is the draft legal were it not for collective bargaining? The answer would be no. You know, free agency or prohibiting one's right to be a free agent, okay? All of this other stuff that goes on. There's a bevy of things that I could bring up that wouldn't be allowed or considered or deemed allowable in our country if it were not for the collective bargaining agreements between the players and the owners. And so if collective bargaining applies where the owners sit on another side of the table from the players and the players have to acquiesce and capitulate to the stipulations that are within an agreement made between them and the owners, how is it that the owners get to circumvent it when it applies to them as it pertains to their little cocoon dealing with one another? You are an owner in the NBA. You signed on to be an owner. And you're subjected to the stipulations of the NBA Constitution. And because you don't like how it applies to you, you want to step in and try to change the rules? No, you don't get to do that. The NBA is making the case that he has incredibly and drastically sullied and impugned the name of the National Basketball Association and its brand. They want no association with him because to have an association with him essentially alienates the vast majority of players who represent your league. LeBron James wants him gone. Most of these players, if not all of them, want him gone. You got white dudes like J.J. Redick that want him gone. Okay? And his statements are just one of the issues. So when you bring in, yeah, granted, you got the secret phone call, and that's a separate issue. But it's become public. It is what it is. And anybody that tries to step forward and say that this private industry that brought you in and you signed on and stipulated that you would acquiesce to their stipulations, and you want to sit there and say, no, I don't have to do that? I don't know how that works. I don't know how you can end up getting away with something like that, because if you can, then the player should have the right to sit there and say, let me out my contract right now. I don't want to play for this franchise any longer, not to mention the fact that, any player, you should literally have 29 teams and say, Donald Sterling, go out there and get players if you can. Because who's going to come play for them?
Okay, time out. Let's keep it apples to apples here. I'm going to throw a hypothetical back at you. And this is probably crazy, but you brought this up.
Sure.
Okay, let's do a similar situation. Let's say there was the girlfriend of a white NBA player, and they were having a lover's quarrel, and she secretly tape recorded him making racist statements similar to Sterling's. No use of the N-word, but similar sort of a racist view of black players or black people, however you want to do it. Okay? Then could the NBA say, we kick you permanently forever out of our league? Could they get away with that in court? And it was taped in the state of California. I don't know either. I'm just saying.
I don't know, but I can assure you that if there was language within the collective bargaining agreement that alludes to that being punished, that kind of punishment being implemented in the event that such an act occurred, then they could definitely get away with it. So if they could, my point is, if they can get away with it with a player, they should damn sure be able to get away with it with an owner.
Okay. Now, I also remind you, Chris Broussard, our friend, first day this story broke, made the point on one of the shows, I think it was the Van Pelt show I was listening to driving home, that time out, there are other owners in this league who are a little afraid to open this Pandora's box.
Sure.
Because they might get kicked out for a skeleton in their closet.
Right.
Not this skeleton, but another kind of skeleton, okay?
Well, again, that is a concern, because who knows what Donald Sterling knows about some of his contemporaries.
Got that right.
And so that's where it becomes scary. But that is exactly why the players are sitting back and saying, where's the vote?
I'm asking
We're
you,
waiting.
Where's the vote? I want to know, where's the vote?
Because, Skip, here's where it becomes even more important. The commissioner standing up and willing to take the position that he took was a sigh of relief, because we like, all right, we know where you stand. Now, those owners, excuse me, what's the hesitancy? What is your problem? Because if you have hesitancy, are we working for more Donald Sterlings in the NBA and we didn't know? This is what the LeBron James and the Chris Pauls and the list goes on would like to know. This is why the NBA had better address this matter as it pertains to the owners coming forward to vote him out.
So after Commissioner Silver, Adam Silver, won the day, that first day at that press conference, banned for life, and everybody said, hoorah! And the emotions ran amok, happy days are here again, nothing happened. There was a lot of saber rattling, nothing happened. Weeks passed.
I don't want to put it like that. I think it's no. The reason why I don't want to put it like that, and this is important to say, no one assumed it was a finished product. You just knew that was the first necessary step, and the fact that he made it and made it so quickly, meaning that Tuesday before Game 5, was the relief. But no one was under the false impression that that's all that was required. The players have been waiting for that vote from the owners to come down. I have been waiting for it. Mike Wilbon has been waiting for it. All of our contemporaries in this business, you have been waiting for it. We are waiting for the owners to stand up, step up, and vote him out. And whatever legalese ensues, everybody can accept that, so long as those owners vote him out.
Last quick question, because you raised the specter of this the other day. If we get to Game 5, 6, 7 of the conference finals, no vote, is it possible players get together and say, "Man, we ain't playing tonight"?
No. They're gonna go through with this season. They're gonna go through with these finals. But after that, if the owners don't vote, if they haven't voted Sterling out, that's going to tell a lot of players what they needed to know, and a lot of possibilities. You know, the boycotts and all of that stuff are possibilities. But you know what else is a possibility? We are not going to work in conjunction with you. You know that in order for the NBA to promote its brand, it needs the cooperation of a lot of its players. You can show up to work and play basketball and still be very abrasive and be very uncooperative in a lot of things that the league is going to want you to do if the league owners don't step in and vote this man out. There's a whole bunch of possibilities that will be entertained. I can assure you of that, and the players will not go away quietly on this. I can promise you that.
This won't be the last time we talk about
You
this.
think? Well, according to the NBA bylaws, Sterling's ownership also could be terminated if he does not pay the fine within 30 days. But again, that goes back to his original premise that he did nothing wrong. Well, Browns quarterback coach Dow Logan said during a radio interview on Sports Talk with Bo Mattingly that Johnny Manziel sent him a text on the night of the draft as he began to slide.
We're sitting there and they keep showing Johnny on TV, and we're going back and forth. Johnny and I are texting, and he shoots me a text that says, "I wish you guys would come get me, trade up and draft me because I want to be there and I want to wreck this league together." So when I got that text, I forwarded it to the owner and to the head coach. I'm like, this guy wants to be here. He wants to be part of it. And as soon as that happened, Mr. Adams said, pull the trigger. We're trading up to go get this guy.
Well, there you have it, Skip. You have a column up on ESPN.com right now.
I do.
It's basically how Johnny Manziel went to the Browns. Now that we're aware of this text, I ask you this question. Will this be a happy marriage between the two?
Stephen A. Smith, I fear it will not be. As you remember, how many times did I say in this show, Houston will forever regret it if it passes Johnny Manziel with the #1 overall pick? And now the point of my column is, I'm fearing I will forever regret that Cleveland fell into drafting Johnny Manziel because that staff, that front office, was dangerously divided about Johnny Manziel. It was, and I fear that it still is. So here's what you have to understand. During the draft evaluation process, Johnny Manziel clicked with one man in Cleveland. Kerry just brought up his name. Most people don't know him. Dow Loggins. He was the offensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans sort of half of a year, 2 years ago, and then last year. So for the last year and a half, he was the offensive coordinator. Then Wisenhunt obviously took over, and he's going to be the offensive coordinator and play caller. So Loggins out, and he winds up in Cleveland under, as just the quarterback coach, under our old friend Kyle Shanahan, who is the offensive coordinator. I was told by several sources that Kyle and the new GM Ray Farmer not completely sold on Johnny Manziel. And Stephen A., what have I preached on this show? Whichever team did take Johnny must be all in on Johnny football. As you well know, as Mel Kiper said again and again, you either really, really love how Johnny football plays football, or you just don't. And I fear that Kyle and Farmer are on the just don't side. Loggins loves Johnny football, so they're texting back and forth because Johnny would love to play for that quarterback coach, who unfortunately has a boss named Kyle Shanahan. So he texts them after Dallas passed at 16 and said, you read the text, hey, I'm paraphrasing it, but he said, hurry up and take me, trade up and take me so we can wreck this league together. That's what Johnny thinks. That's how much Johnny wanted to be in Cleveland, Ohio. So when Loggins forwards the text to Jimmy Haslam, the owner says, wow, this Heisman Trophy winner with the Hollywood aura really wants that badly to play in Cleveland, Ohio? We got to take him. So it sounds like the owner had the last word, and he overruled the dissenters in the front office and said, hey, let's move from 26 up to 22. Let's take Johnny football. Now, a lot of people from the outside in will say, the owner of a couple of years just made the biggest football decision that organization has made in years and years. Well, I say, good for you, Jimmy Haslam. I thought it was a great move by the owner. Whether you think he knows football or not, that city, that organization will benefit greatly by that move. But the staff is still split on Johnny. Kyle Shanahan, my nemesis, as you recall, with his father Mike in Washington with RG3, because Remember, you reported first here on this show, Stephen A. Dan Snyder wanted RG3 more than the Shanahans wanted RG3. They weren't all in at the start when Shanahan said, let's sort of bet the ranch and go all the way up to the Rams pick at number 2 to take Robert. They did, and the Shanahans kind of got on board, but he was never their guy. There was friction. There were clashes, and you know what happened? It kind of disintegrated between those two and RG3. Well, I'm fearing what goes around just came back around to get me again. I'm fearing that Johnny will clash with Kyle Shanahan, whose father has 2 Super Bowl rings, and Kyle has a big ego, and justifiably so. But you know Johnny's got an ego, and I'm going to predict they are going to clash. So I'm not sure this is the greatest spot for Johnny Manziel.
Well, I don't feel it's the greatest spot for Johnny Manziel because I don't like how the owner handled matters last week. Just a few days ago, actually.
I didn't either. That's a whole other issue. Yeah.
But to me, it's not a whole nother issue because if you come out and you say you're a backup, you got to behave like a backup. This is Cleveland. It's not Hollywood. How does that vibe with, oh, this guy really wants to come here and wreck the league? Oh, I really, really like him. Let's take him. I mean, if you embrace that enough to draft him, then you should have embraced it to the point where you're supportive of him as opposed to coming out and publicly checking him the way that he elected to do.
Can I say one thing before you go on? I believe that the owner, remember he was speaking to a Pro Football Hall of Fame luncheon in Canton, Ohio, nearby Canton. I believe he was trying to placate the anti-Manziel faction within his organization that, now I'm not going to treat him like he's my pet now. I'm going to want him to come in here, act like a backup, and earn that job. I don't like the language because I think you should tell Johnny to come in and act like he owns the team because that's where he could take this team to the top. If you give him his head, he will produce. But my point is I think he's trying to placate a GM and a coordinator who's saying, we took this kid? Are you serious? So he wants him to kind of earn his spurs now, so to speak, in Cleveland.
In the end, what it comes down to is what you've been alluding to all along. Particularly when you're an NFL quarterback, everybody needs to be all in on you, meaning your head coach, your offensive coordinator. I also think, Skip, it's worth noting and really, really illuminating, rather, how you got the quarterback coach circumventing or bypassing the offensive coordinator and the head coach to show a text to the owner.
Yep.
I mean, that's a little bit suspicious in and of itself. And so the combination of that usually assist in alienating the very individual he was trying to promote.
You got that right.
Because you have others that are going to step up and say, who the hell is he? You know, we don't like this, okay? So, yeah, you got the support of the owner and you got the support of the quarterback coach, but the head coach and the offensive coordinator might very well end up giving you a hard damn time because we're not sure we wanted you to begin with. If that's the environment that Johnny Football is walking into, it seems to me that he's got a problem that has nothing to do with football.
No doubt.
And so if you have a problem that has nothing to do with football, and that could ultimately, you know, camouflage someone's thinking, then he's not going to be given a fair shot because it's not about him playing.
I agree.
It's about him being liked. And that's a problem that we have throughout corporate America, where one's productivity somehow, some way, no matter how great it may be, is usurped by what one deems to be their likability.
Yeah.
Well, we like him, or we like her, or we don't. And that usurps what they actually do on a day-in, day-out basis as it pertains to their productivity. There's a whole bunch of people that are productive that don't get the shine they deserve because they're not necessarily liked.
Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of people who don't produce but get the shine because they are liked.
Okay, so remember, you read, I think last night, my column that I finished yesterday?
I did. I read it.
I had it from a good source that Johnny had texted Dow Loggins and that Loggins had forwarded the text to Jimmy Haslam. That was not from Dow Loggins, okay? And then late yesterday, maybe it was even in the evening, Loggins, who's only 33 years old, so that's why he clicked with the younger Johnny, he's from Arkansas, and he went on a radio station in Arkansas, ESPN Arkansas, okay? And he divulged this. So once you make this public that, hey, look how badly Johnny wanted to play for Cleveland, man, you've sort of drawn the line with your coordinator and maybe even your GM. You've publicly laid down the battle lines now. You know, like, I'm on Johnny's side if you guys aren't.
Well, not only that, what Logan's shown, unfortunately, is his inexperience and his naivete. Because what you don't do is go on the radio and in the process of promoting the fact that Johnny Football wanted to be in Cleveland, whether tacitly or indirectly, you highlighted the fact that, number one, you bypassed the owner, the offensive coordinator and the head coach, which, by the way, are your direct super and the GM.
Stephen A., he didn't bypass the head coach. He forwarded the text to the head coach.
Also to Patton, right. He sent it to Patton.
He sent it to the head coach.
I think Patton is a Johnny guy. That's between the lines that I'm getting from my sources.
But I get what y'all saying. He didn't just send it to the owner. He sent it to everybody.
No,
but what I'm saying,
he only sent it to the coach and the owner, who he thought would be more on his side about it. But the GM and the coordinator, not so much.
The GM and the coordinator, not so much.
Yes.
And then not only that, you made private business public.
You did.
That's a problem.
I'm afraid it's going to be a problem.
And the person who may suffer the most outside of him, because we need to watch his job security moving forward, by the way.
I would agree.
Outside of him, we need to watch how Johnny's treated.
I totally agree.
And we have to make sure that if Johnny is getting criticized, it's going to be because of football, not because of manufactured animus.
Oh, Johnny.
Just keep that in mind.
So he loses Josh Gordon maybe for a year.
I know.
And now this.
Whew.
We did our best to communicate to the league, and we didn't know what team he was going to and when he was going to that team. So as soon as he was, that's when the communication started, and it's ongoing and it's continuing. And we're very committed to not infringing on the Rams, on their autonomy, or on taking away from in any way from their product on the field or their operations. We're not going to be interviewing any players. We're not going to be having coaches, front office, teammates be part of this. They're not going to be in meetings, and we're not going to be at the facility or the team hotel. Being a football player and documenting history are not mutually exclusive. Just because Mike is the subject of a documentary, not a reality show, does not mean he can't focus on football. To think that just because there's some cameras present, when there's been cameras present for the past 4+ years of his life, would be silly.
The president of the Oprah Winfrey Network told our Hannah Storm, quote, "The intention of this documentary has always been to follow Michael at the center of his historic moment in professional sports and to shine a light on his courage and determination to make the St. Louis Rams roster. There are no plans to shoot any practices or on-field activities at the Rams facility." Let's discuss this, shall we? Michael Sam on the couch. We welcome in our NFL analyst, Darren Woodson. Good to have you back.
Thank you.
Do you miss Stephen A.?
No.
Okay. Just making sure.
He's lying.
Quickly, give us your take on this whole Michael Sam situation.
Top to bottom. Well, I think when you look at it, I guess you have to look from an organization's point of view. The organization, when they bring in a young player or a veteran player, their worst fear is free time. And I've heard every coach from Bill Parcells to Jimmy Johnson say, "I can't stand the fact that you guys have free time. I want you focused on football. Football, football, football." They don't want the distraction. Every organization wants you to be focused on football. As a young football player coming in, especially as a young rookie, 7th-round pick, you don't want the distractions. And from what I hear and from the press conference I've heard through Michael Sam, all he's talked about was being a football player. Judge me as a football player. My focus is to be great. And to be great, you better be laser focused on one thing, and that's playing football and making this football team. I don't have a problem with people on the outside doing whatever it is away from the facility. If that's your personal life, hey, I've made my own decisions, my personal life, I've done my own things. Hey, that's my own thing. And this is Michael Sam's decision to do what he wants to do outside of this, outside of the facility. My concern is for a football player, for a young football player, is do not have distractions, be laser focused. You're going to have to not only try to make this team, but you're going to have to be something that you haven't been, which is a special teams demon. Because they already got Chris Long. They already got their starters at defensive end. He's going to have to be that 3rd, 4th guy. He's going to be battling with that 3rd and 4th guy. So he's going to have to try to make this football team. Just don't have the distractions on the outside.
Stephen A., before you go, I covered Darren Woodson's rookie year team with the Dallas Cowboys. You were a, second round? Second round pick. I don't remember Darren Woodson as a rookie because I saw him, but I never heard him. And you avoided interviews. You were a pretty quiet man for a while. Most of your career you were.
I had no. My choice was I had 3 guys in front of me as a safety. I was trying to win a spot, and these guys weren't. James Washington and Thomas Everett and Robert Williams.
Pretty good.
These guys. Yeah. These guys were not trying to give up their spots and weren't trying to help me out at all. That's the way I look at most rookies that come in. I don't care if you're Michael Sam, whoever it is. When you come in as a rookie, you're trying to take someone else's job. That plate, guys don't want you eating off their plate. They're not going to be there to help you, and they ain't going to be all hunky-dory. It's going to be a battle, and it's going to be a tough fight to try to earn that spot. And it's, for me, for him to have those distractions off the field, I think it's, at this point, I think it's terrible.
Stephen A.
Darren Woodson.
Oh, boy.
Probably Skip Bayless. Y'all are missing the point.
As always.
Everybody's missing a point. You ain't wrong. You're just missing a point. And I understand why, because it's obviously a little dicey to say. Well, I'm going to do it for you. Michael Sam lied. It's that simple. His representatives saying what he said is absolutely correct. They can be mutually exclusive. They can be mutually exclusive or whatever. Darren Woodson, everything that you just said is absolutely correct. Michael Sam, he's not wrong, but he lied because he said it's all about football. Clearly, it's not. Clearly, you want to be front and center in terms of bringing attention to the quote-unquote gay cause. I don't have a problem with it. You don't have a problem with it. You shouldn't have a problem with it in terms of that outside of the football analogy that you use, Darren. Skip, neither should you. Neither should anybody. So long as this dude is laser focused on football. But the fact is that his actions are totally deviating from his words. Because he said everything's about football. This is not about football. This is about him. This is not about football. This is about being a gay man in America.
Yep.
This is not about football. This is about bringing attention to the plight of gay folks in this country. I can't knock him for that. And that's who he is. And if he's that kind of a conscientious brother, I have to respect it. Until I remember what you said about how you weren't interested in anything but football. You didn't want to be known about anything but football. This is who you are. You're comfortable in your own skin. Now, look, I'm just going out there to play. That's what you said. And now we got the OWN network involved with Oprah speaking up for you and your representatives on TV, and they're trying to explain stuff. You don't want to be just a football player. You want to carry the baton and the mantle for this segment of the population who in some way has been ostracized, victimized, prejudiced against, violated in so many ways as it pertains to the civil rights. This is what you want to do. Just admit it, and maybe it would be a lot easier to accept. But Michael Sam has denied this categorically and repeatedly by swearing up and down he's all about football. He lied. It's that simple.
Okay, but I'm going to tweak what you said to it's not just about him, Stephen A. I think it's about it. I think it's about a gay cause that is probably pulling this young man in every direction.
Okay.
And I don't want him to wake up 10 years from today and say, gee, I became a pawn in all this.
Exactly.
That I just hope that his representatives and the leaders of the gay community understand enough about football to know that there was some reason he fell in the draft. Not so far as to the bottom of the 7th round, but there was a reason he would have been a 4th or 5th round draft pick because he was a tweener. He didn't test well. I'm not completely sure he can make the team. I hope he can. I would have taken him higher. I think he's a pretty good football player. But if you pull him in too many directions and he fails, and Jeff Fisher is being honest when he says, I will not hesitate to cut Michael Sam if he can't perform to the level to make this football team, where would that get the gay cause?
Right.
Nowhere. So they have a great opportunity to let a young man now lock in on football and regain the football platform that he had at Missouri before we knew. Some people did know, but now the world knows. And I must say, if the Rams had known about the documentary, would they have hesitated? Would they have taken him?
Yes.
You think they would have taken him?
Yes.
Because?
Yes. Because the reason why is because, Skip, we live in a Christian nation. If you have an individual like Tim Tebow, who is as devout of a Christian as they come, regardless of what I say about my friend Tim Tebow, okay? Regardless of what I say, regardless of what I say about my friend Tim Tebow, my buddy, about his challenge to learn how to throw the football on an NFL level, there is no question that if it were not for the circus that seemed to follow him wherever he went, Tim Tebow would probably be in the NFL right now. It's the circus. So if the circus can find a way to interfere and derail his quest, you don't think that's going to happen for a dude that is gay? And announced it to the world, and by the way, is making documentaries and willing to carry the mantle and all of that. Listen, people don't want to. It's not about being gay. It's about a circus-type atmosphere. No NFL team, like Darren says, you could be married with kids, living a life of Richie Cunningham back from the happy days in the 50s, for crying out loud. And they'll still have a problem with you because it takes time away from football. So true. Of course so that applies to anybody. I'm simply saying that any kind of distraction is something that is going to be frowned upon. Michael Sam knew this. You end up being a seventh round pick, and you still allowed this. And try to act like this is not a distraction? In what world? In what world? Darren. This man's in trouble. Michael Sam's in trouble.
You know, and
he's in trouble. Mark my words.
I'm looking at it from just a football point of view. And being in those locker rooms and being in those team meetings and understanding what the owner wants, understanding what the head coach wants, and it's always, the entire conversation is always about distraction. How do you eliminate it?
Okay.
If I'm Michael Sam, I'm coming into this knowing that I have to battle Robert Quinn for hopefully a starting job, Chris Long for hopefully a starting job. And the reality of this is this: when all the cameras are off and everything's quiet and he walks into that meeting room, he's not going to be fighting for a starting job. He's going to be one of those guys who's a third linebacker, third or fourth defensive end, or whatever it is, and he's going to be running down on special teams.
He is.
His main focus right now needs to be I understand the Oprah deal, and his main focus right now, if you want to be a football player, get in the playbook, learn how to be a guy that can run down on the punt team. Learn how to be a guy that can run down on the kickoff team, because that's what he's going to be. Let's forget all the other stuff that's going on. That's what he's going to be, a special team demon, and that's the only way he makes this football team. This team is too deep for him to be a starter.
How many times do you think over the next month or so will the veteran Rams be asked about the Oprah documentary? How do you feel about it?
And that's the problem, because you don't want to have to deal with those questions. And the Rams are not going to want to deal with those questions at training camp. The Rams' problem right now, they have two teams right now. Actually three teams they got to deal with. Arizona Cardinals being one in their division, San Francisco 49ers in that division, and the Seattle Seahawks, who are the Super Bowl champs. That's their concern right now, not Michael Sam and Oprah Winfrey.
How do you see this playing out?
I'm a fan. I want to see Michael Sam succeed. I really do. I mean, to the bottom of my heart, I want to see him make this football team, not just for just historical reasons, just because of the battle and what he's gone through in his life and in the last 3 or 4 years. I want to see this guy succeed. I just don't want to see the distractions. I personally don't see, even without this distraction off the field, the chances of him making this team are slim. Extremely slim. I don't know where it goes from this.
Hey, last quick point. Stephen A., remember how you said, I guess it was Monday, that you felt like Michael Sam fell to near the bottom of the draft simply because he is a publicly gay man now? I warn you, remember your old team, Jim Jeffcoat?
Yes.
His son, Jackson Jeffcoat. I just remembered this yesterday. Jackson Jeffcoat was a pretty good player at Texas. He won Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. He won the Ted Hendricks Award for the best defensive lineman nationally. He did not get drafted. So let's keep that in some perspective. He went to Seattle as a free agent.
Right.
Okay, just for the record. So it happens.
Stephen A. Smith.
Okay.
Your best friend Darren's leaving now.
He loves me.
Yo, man, that's my man. You know, Darren tried to act. Did Darren know he loves me, man?
Hey,
You
the
know,
watch game stepped up. I'm back with the watch game.
Yeah, you can't even see it, Stephen A. It's nice.
Well, you know what? I'm glad it finally happened. It took you long enough.
Darren Woodson, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Coming this summer, the 2014 FIFA World Cup from Brazil. Every goal.
The shot, Donovan scores! The USA leads by 2!
Every save.
Here's Germany up, steal, closer. In the box, the shot is stopped.
Every match. Wherever you are this summer, take the FIFA World Cup with you. It's on ESPN Radio and the ESPN Radio app.
The Heat did it in 5 against the Nets, while the Pacers did it in 6 against the Wizards. This was the Eastern Conference Finals we all suspected early on, but postseason we didn't really know because the Pacers had imploded. Now they do have home court advantage, you may remember. Series begins on Sunday, Stephen A. And you know the Pacers get up for the Heat. Who wins the series?
I'm picking the Heat. I want to say in 6 games. I don't think it'll be a 7-game series this time around. It's hard for me because I'm incredibly fond of the Pacers. I think they're great, great guys, and I would love to see them enjoy a level of success. But I've never seen a team this good last year in the playoffs, this good for the first 60 games of the season, essentially collapse the last 2.5 months in a very embarrassing way, I might add. I've lost all faith in the Indiana Pacers. I didn't have much faith in the Washington Wizards when I saw how young they exposed themselves to be, and I understand that. But I just look at the Indiana Pacers and I see a team that they're just not ready. They're just not ready yet. They're a piece away, I guess, but so many questions. One day it's about Roy Hibbert. Another day it's about George Hill. Another day it's about Paul George. Another day it's about Lance Stevenson. Another day it's about Coach Frank Vogel, who I think is a good coach and I hope enjoys some success so he can stay on as coach of that franchise. I've just lost a lot of faith in their resolve. But I will say this. They do get up for the Miami Heat. They want this bad. And I don't think it'll be easy. But I guess I'm looking at the Indiana Pacers, and this is the best way I could say it. I know they could give the Heat, Skip, a run for their money, even though I believe they'll lose. But it's one of those scenarios where, despite the fact that they won 2 7-game series, I really feel like they don't deserve to be here, based on the brand of basketball we've seen them play on too many occasions over the last 2.5 months. They don't deserve to be in this position. And I hate saying that because I think they're great guys and I want them to succeed. But based on what I saw the last 2.5 months, they don't deserve to be here.
You sound conflicted about a team I know you like a lot personally. And I'm surprised you even gave them 2 games just because they get up for the Heat. But then you argue the other side, you've lost all faith and they don't even deserve to be here. And I am completely with you on that. I feel like I'm giving them a break to give them 1 game. I'm going to say Heat in 5. And let me count the ways I've lost faith in them. Remember, they lost 3 times to Atlanta, and 2 of them were at home. They lost by 13 at Atlanta, then they lost by 10 and 8 at home. To Atlanta? Really? And then against the Wizards, they lost by 2, and then they lost by 6 at home, and by 23 at home. Yep. They lost by 23. So now that means in the first 2 rounds, they've lost 4 home games badly. And they had the best home record in the whole league during the regular season, 35-6. So they only lost 6 times in the regular season at home. Now in the first 2 rounds, they've lost 4. 4-6. It makes no sense. So now they're 8-5 in the postseason, and it feels like 5-8, doesn't it? I mean, it just feels like get out of our sight. The Wizards and the Pacers took turns embarrassing each other on each other's floor. And last night, the Wizards, Bradley Beal, what a sweet shooter. He makes a 3, and it puts them ahead 74-73 with 8.5 minutes to go. And all of a sudden, David West, the only Pacer I trust is David West. He makes 2 big jump shots, or set shots. He doesn't really jump much on his jump shot, but he makes 2 mid-range. And all of a sudden, they go on a 20-6 run, in large part because the Wizards couldn't do it. They just collapse. They just fall apart because the Wizards had no business being in the second round. They're not there yet. You would think the Pacers do have business being back in the conference finals, but even though the home team won each of the games in the 4 they played against the Heat, so it was 2-2, I'm done. I'm out. I'm giving them a break to give them 1 game because I like the way the Heat played the last 5 minutes against the Nets the other night. I saw last year's Heat, and even though Paul George, as you well know, in the past has posed a tough matchup for LeBron on both ends of the floor because they kind of mirror each other in body type, height, and physicality. But I'm not seeing it from Paul. I don't see any star arriving, superstar potential. I'm sorry, I don't see it. So I'm going defending champs, 5 games pretty easily.
Everything has been haphazard. You've got players in the locker room bickering with one another, players calling one another out. Frank Vogel seeming incapable of finding the pulse of this team, to maintain some degree of consistency. He finds it to win games that they have to win. But I'm talking about being consistent. Hasn't seemed to be able to do that over the last 2.5 months. And like you said, the only person that I trust on the Indiana Pacers to do his job is David West.
Yep.
I like Lance Stevenson a lot. He's erratic, but I like him.
Sure.
I really like him. But I look at Paul George. I think he's a star. He should have been a superstar by now. He should have elevated his game.
Sure.
He has not.
Nope.
Not consistently. George Hill, he's no scrub. He can play. But somehow you look at him at the point guard, they clearly need a point guard.
No, he's a backup.
Well, you know what? It's not so much that he's a backup, Skip. He's really not a point guard. He's just a guard that happens to play point because they don't have a point guard.
Yeah.
And so there's a difference. Yeah. And so you just look at and Roy Hibbert, you're 7'2". I don't care about your offense. I know you were a little bit methodical or whatever, but what I would hang my hat on with Roy Hibbert until the cows come home was his defense. And it was non-existent at many points during these last 2.5 months. They can't be trusted.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I'm at with them. So I see them winning 1 of 2. I see them winning 1 of 2 in Indianapolis, then being down 3-1, and then winning a Game 5 in Indy before losing to Miami in 6.
Okay.
But they could be gone in 5.
Okay, last quick question, just to be fair to the Pacers. Is there any way that now that they finally got to where they wanted to be before the season started, that they suddenly flip that Miami-hating switch somewhere deep down inside, and they win this in 7 games? Is there a way?
No.
I'm going to say no. Nope, can't do it.
Even though
no
they
way
know
to win it. No way to win it, but that could propel them to the 2 victories, which is what I am counting on.
The Thunder may have emerged, not everged. That's not a word, Skip.
Unless you just created it.
I like everge. The Thunder won, essentially. But they do not have Serge Ibaka. Guess what happened to him, Skip Bayless?
I don't know what.
In the 3rd quarter, he left with an injured left calf.
You're kidding.
Yeah, Scott Brooks says he'll know more today, whether or not it's a big issue. But Stephen Naismith, can the Spurs actually beat OKC without Ibaka?
What?
The other way around.
Is that a trick question?
Can they beat the Spurs without Ibaka? Can OKC beat the Spurs without Ibaka?
No, they cannot. They need Ibaka to win this series. If you don't have Serge Ibaka, you lose this series. You lose these Eastern Conference Finals. No matter how great Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook are, I don't think you beat the Spurs without Ibaka. You need him. Now, clearly, that's assuming that the Spurs have Tony Parker, who's had his hamstring injuries, because the Spurs ain't the same team without Tony Parker. But Ibaka's a devastating loss for the Oklahoma City Thunder against these Spurs, because the combination of Tim Duncan and Thiago Splitter, okay, and their size inside, that could really be a challenge for OKC. That's a challenge in and of itself, even with Ibaka. Without him, I can't see it. You need Ibaka to win this series.
So, late last night, you were there. Did you see any distress on the faces of any of the Thunder players or officials?
I saw it on the face of Sam Presti, the man that runs the Oklahoma City Thunder. But when I spoke to him, he did say, we'll see what the situation is today. He'll be examined back today back in Oklahoma City. He did say that. But initially when I had seen him, he hadn't seen me, but when I saw him from a distance, he looked very concerned. And then I walked up to him and spoke to him, and he talked about how he's going to be examined today. We'll see. But they know how important Serge Ibaka is to this team. And if you lose him, that's a devastating blow.
I don't know what you want me to say to this question.
That you hope he
Yes, I hope he, please God, help him, help him heal. I don't know.
Yes.
I'm rooting for the Spurs. I got to tell you, Stephen A., Serge Ibaka terrorizes Tim Duncan and Thiago Splitter, terrorizes them. Serge Ibaka terrorizes Tony Parker at the rim. We know how quickly Tony can get to the rim against most teams, as he did in games 1, 2, and 3 against Portland and Robin Lopez. But against the Thunder, he's looking over his shoulder at every little dribble, thinking, where is he, where is he, where is he? Oh, I missed the layup, oh no. And here comes Serge flying in for another block and another rebound. Now, I will tell you this. I think Steven Adams is going to be a player. He's young, but he's turned into a force. I don't know what you think of him, because we never talked about him. But he's huge. He's got a little bit of mean streak in him. And I thought he played big last night in a tough spot, trying to hold down the fort without Serge for most of the third and all of the fourth quarter. But, again, would my Spurs have a little advantage? Well, they have a big advantage. Again, Tony Parker says that his hamstring is only a grade 1 strain versus the grade 2 that hampered him going into the finals last year in Miami when they did win game 1. So I'm going to say, okay, I guess he's going to be pretty good. I don't know. I thought he was mentally hurt a little more the other night, obviously against Batum, than he was physically, but that's just me. So Ibaka.
Skip, you should want Ibaka healthy so they can say you did.
Okay, so we beat the best?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you need to stop being a punk. Want the Oklahoma City Thunder at their best. Want them at their best. Don't look for an injury to help you out.
Okay.
You should want Oklahoma City 100%.
Okay, I just said,
so the Spurs can go against them.
Serge is okay. Please.
No.
Please heal fast.
You should say you hope that he's ready to go 100%.
100%. I hope he is.
So the Spurs are ready.
Please.
So the Spurs go up against the best. I want both sides at their absolute best. So I know who the better team in the West is.
Okay, good. That's what I want too.
Yeah. All right. I'm
do.
going to hold you to that.
I don't believe you.
I'm going to hold you to that, Skip.
Get better.
Well, the Lakers are still on the quest for a new coach, and while the lines of communication between Mitch Kupchak and Kobe Bryant are open, as we all know, the GM tells our Andy Katz that Kobe won't necessarily have a say in who they choose next.
You know, from time to time we ask his advice. He really won't weigh in on something like this. I'm not even sure that we'll talk to him prior to interviews. But, you know, from time to time he's in our facility. I'll go downstairs and I'll talk to him about a bunch of different things.
Look at that player coach doing what he does best. Stephen A., should Kobe be involved in the process?
I think he should be involved to some degree. The fact of the matter is, although players don't necessarily find themselves involved for the most part, when you're a superstar, you're consulted to some degree. The general manager, the coach, assuming you had one, which they don't right now, would respect rather some input from its resident star. But in the case of Kobe Bryant, I would make a legitimate argument that it is absolutely owed to him. And it's not just because of the 5 championships, the scoring title, the league MVP award, one of the greatest players to have ever played the game. Not even because of his level of commitment, which is exemplary. It's also because you've thrown away several years of his career with some of the other decisions you've made. You lose Phil Jackson. You alienate Phil Jackson. He walks away. You bring in Mike Brown. Kobe Bryant wanted Brian Shaw. You lose Mike Brown. You let him go 5 games into a season. You bring in Mike D'Antoni. All of these things that you elected to do have gotten in the way and have basically stolen years from Kobe's NBA life. And so now, according to my sources, just so you know, Carrie, since you're a Laker fan.
I am.
And so you know, Skip, because you're a Kobe fan, one of the things the Lakers are not telling anybody is they have a real big-time attitude with Kobe right now. They are very displeased with him. According to my sources, they are ticked off that he left and went to France for vacation before the season ended. And because of that, there are several people within the Lakers organization harboring a very, very strong level of resentment towards him that they haven't let go of yet. When you consider that and recognize that this is not the first time that Mitch Kupchak has alluded to Kobe not necessarily being a part of the process, how that thinking mirrors that of Jim Buss, how Mitch is safe because he just got a 4-year extension from the Lakers. The list goes on and on. It doesn't spell as an ideal situation for Kobe Bryant. But in the end, I think it's incumbent upon the Lakers to recognize that they owe Kobe that much because despite his penchant for shooting the basketball, he also has a penchant for winning and being great. And more importantly, I haven't seen Kobe utter or do anything that has not been deemed in the best interest of the Los Angeles Lakers. This guy is a Laker for life. He's one of the all-time greats. He doesn't want to go anywhere. He just wants to win. And as far as I'm concerned, who would know better than him what an ideal coach, what would qualify as an ideal coach for this franchise moving forward, at least in the immediate future, which are the last 2 years of his career coming up.
Very interesting what you just said. And I want to reiterate, I am a big Kobe Bryant fan. And as great as this regular season and these playoffs have been, I missed Kobe Bryant this year. It was not the same without
Ain't the
Kobe.
same without him. Ain't the same without the Black Mamba.
And I must also point out that I did read, reportedly, Kobe on his European vacation made a side trip to Germany to get the treatment that you cannot get on that knee in the United States.
Right.
So there was a little business trip involved with the pleasure. And I'm assuming, because I read this maybe even from Kobe, that he wanted to get that family vacation out of the way so he could plunge back in to his rehab so that he could be 1,000% ready for the start of next season and training camp. So I don't have an issue with Kobe going off a little early, but if they did, fine. Now, here's the problem. Kobe Bryant is approaching his 19th NBA season. He will play at 36 years of age next year. Think of that, 19 years in the NBA. So it's tricky because let's do the Kevin Ollie scenario.
Okay.
Let's say Kevin Ollie becomes the choice for Laker coach. I want to see Kevin Ollie be the coach for the next, 15 or 20 years. That's how successful I want him to be and think he could be. Well, clearly, Kobe, what are we thinking, Stephen A? Two more good years, maybe? Okay.
Well, he knows it. I mean, this is it, Skip.
I get it.
This is it.
That's realistic.
These 2
Michael
years,
Jackson.
Okay,
these
more
2
good
years, these 2 years are the end.
Okay, so I definitely want Kobe to have input, but I'm not sure you can let Kobe have the final say on the coach because
nobody's saying that.
Okay, but here's the problem I had with what we just heard from Mitch Kupchak. Why would he say that publicly?
Yeah.
It's so disrespectful.
So
That's what I've been trying to tell you.
Yeah.
That's what I've been trying to tell you.
Terribly
That's
disrespectful.
exactly what I've been trying to tell you. Now, there's a couple of things that you need to know. You've got some people out here in L.A. clamoring for Kevin Ollie because he's a fresh face, he's young, and they want to entertain that. You have others that are wondering, because the college basketball landscape has changed so much and it doesn't seem nearly as appealing as it once was, whether or not Mike Krzyzewski could take that shot and come, because Kobe would love him, the Lakers love him, etc. I can't see that happening, because if Mike Krzyzewski loves himself some Kobe Bryant,
he does,
but you don't leave Duke for a 2 year relationship, you know, or a 2 year stint with Kobe. Then, as much as you know, as I've been lamenting the state of affairs as it pertains to black coaches, losing jobs, not getting some of these jobs, all right, I would love to see Lionel Hollins' name in the mix, but I have to admit to you, there's a lot of people out here, Skip, when you throw out the name Jeff Van Gundy, a lot of people don't mind it.
Really?
A lot of people don't. They think that would be a tremendous situation because of the stability that he would bring to that franchise from a coaching standpoint. And I don't think any of us can deny what a great coach Jeff Van Gundy is. So with all of that being said, I don't know what direction that they're going to go in, but I can't imagine that you could say it with any level of justification that you don't even need to consult Kobe Bryant about who his next coach is going to be in the final 2 years of an unquestionably illustrious career with the Los Angeles Lakers. Listen, I respect the hell out of Mitch Kupchak. I know Jim Buss is the problem, not because of his absence of basketball knowledge, just because of his selfishness. He wants to do things his way, and he don't give a damn what's in the best interest of the Lakers. But I will acknowledge to you that I'm incredibly alarmed at what I interpret to be what I would say are very disrespectful things coming out of the mouth of Mitch Kupchak. Jim Buss's mouthpiece, basically. Because Mitch Kupchak is better than that. He could stand on his own 2 feet as an executive for any team in this league because he's done it. But he seems to be a mouthpiece for Jim Buss when it comes to what we both term to be disrespectful words towards Kobe.
Okay, so
I don't like it.
Are you saying this might be in a small way trying to get even with Kobe for going on the early vacation to Italy?
No, because if you remember, Mitch Kupchak sounded like this before all of that.
Yeah, he said something before to this
This is not the first time he has done this with Kobe. It's like, look, you play. You know, it's the reason Mike D'Antoni felt emboldened. And then you got Jim Buss, you know, supposedly echoing the thoughts of his daddy before, God bless his soul, Dr. Buss passed away. And then afterwards, you know, you come out and he doesn't. I mean, when does Jim Buss get interviewed? I mean, you got Jeannie Buss in front of folks as sweet as it can be, one of the nicest people in the world. You know, you got her front and center answering questions. But the man making basketball decisions can't be found wherever a camera or a microphone is. And Mitch Kupchak is speaking, and this is the kind of stuff that comes out of your mouth. If I'm Kobe, I feel disrespected.
Okay, even though Kobe got his money, he's going to make a whole lot of money the next 2 years. I got to tell you, I feel sorry for Kobe Bryant.
Why do you feel sorry for him?
Because he's stuck in this situation with this owner and in part with this GM.
I got an idea.
Plight of this team.
Maybe somebody needs to tell Kobe, you know what, stop falling in love with purple and gold. Why don't you roll in New York City for the last 2 years?
Get out of here, Stephen A.
You'll be appreciated in New York. You'll be appreciated in New York.
You just said he's a Laker for life. He's not coming to the New York.
I like that.
I know that.
Kobe to the Knicks.
You stop him out.
Let him out.
Kerry Champion.
You guys are being evil.
Kerry
Kobe
Champion.
to the Knicks.
I'm sorry, Kerry Champion.
Go ahead, Stephen A. Smith.
I didn't say he was coming. I said I'd want him to come.
But he would never. You know that.
You understand?
You know that. He would never.
Please.
Maybe not.
Please.
If he keeps getting disrespected, you never know.
Whatever. Stephen A. Knicks, not happening.
I'd love it.
Steve Kerr didn't work out, but the Knicks may have already found a frontrunner for the head coaching job. According to the New York Daily News, Derek Fisher is emerging as the leading candidate. Stephen A. Smith, is that a good choice for the Knicks?
It's not a bad choice, but it's not the best choice. The best choice is Mark Jackson. And Phil Jackson needs to pick up the phone and at least pay Mark Jackson a call and ask for a visit and a conversation before he makes a decision to go in the direction of one of his proteges. Derek Fisher is playing for the Oklahoma City Thunder. He and I spoke last night, didn't really want to talk about it too extensively. His mind is on the playoffs. That's where he's focused at. That's where Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook and the rest of the Oklahoma City Thunder expect his mind to be focused at. But he is a realist. He is an individual that's the former president of the Players Association. He has aspirations of being an executive in the league someday. And if he were to coach, he did acknowledge that Phil Jackson's the guy that he would want to do it for. It's not about having a zest to coach or whatever the case may be, but it's about making sure you don't summarily dismiss something from a man that's won 11 championship rings and you helped deliver 5 of them too. And that's where Derek Fisher is at. Derek Fisher is a guy that trusts Phil Jackson. He admires Phil Jackson. He respects Phil Jackson. And he's honored that Phil Jackson clearly has put his name out there by giving him consideration for the head coaching job. So he wouldn't elaborate on it. We didn't have much time to talk about it. But he was honest about the fact that, you know what, his mind is where it is right now. But it's Phil Jackson. And when Phil calls, you listen.
Gut feeling, Stephen A. I believe that Derek Fisher, if he so desires, will make a very good NBA head coach. And he would be obviously a much better fit for Phil Jackson than Mark Jackson would be. That would be a do not invite him fit. Even though Carmelo clearly would like Mark Jackson to be the coach, I don't think he fits with Phil. So I think Derek would be a compromise. And I think Melo would like Derek Fisher. That's just me.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. Big show on Monday. Andrew Wiggins and LaShawn McCoy will join us in studio. Catch First Take Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific on ESPN2.